thank you very much, Bob. And I'll tell you that when that whole race got started, nobody thought that Bob had any chance of winning. You know what? That took real courage to step forward and to fight. Bob brought us victory, and now he's making a significant contribution in the United States House of Representatives. Round of applause for Bob. You know, we got George Phillips in the house tonight. George Phillips. I'll tell you what. Let me tell you one thing about George Phillips. That guy's heart's in the right place. He's got a tremendous future. And you know what? He could be off on the sideline right now. That's not where he's at. He's here tonight. He was here for us yesterday. He'll be there for us tomorrow. He's fighting for the right cause. George, thanks for your friendship. Thanks for your support. You know, Roger was introducing just moments ago our tremendous assemblymen and women we have here. I'm so excited to campaign with them this fall. So we work together to bring a better tomorrow for Ulster. So I want to tell you, for Claudia Tenney and for George Amador, who's running for the Senate here in New York State, a very important race. We're going to need to get out, and we're going to make sure we get the vote out, and that they win in November. Thanks for being here tonight. This is a tremendous turnout, and I appreciate the leadership coming together, Republican, conservative, independent, Roger, Ed, Len. You know, this, one of the things you learn in the military pretty quickly is that success, such as what you've produced at the ballot box, success as in terms of the turnout here tonight, just doesn't happen by chance. It happens when a team all comes together, and it reflects the leadership. So thanks for the chairman who put this together. Let's give them a hand. And looking at the leadership here today, Madam Chair, Terry, and all the county legislators, Nina and the county officials, all the town supervisors, all the town chairs, thank you for being here. You've really pumped our family up. Thank you very much. And you know, where I want to go right now is, before I get into my talk about my message for you, I want to introduce you to a very special lady in my life. Mary Jo, my wife. I want to tell you, look, when I was in the United States military and when I was deployed overseas, you know, these were very challenging times. We were in gunfights very often. We had good men and women that were forward fighting for us. We had troopers that were grievously wounded, and we lost troopers in combat, all for the cause of our freedom. But I will tell you, while we were forward, Mary Jo was back with all the families. And she was helping with the wounded. She was helping with the families of the wounded. She was helping with the families of the fallen. And she was helping with all the families that were praying every day for us forward. That takes tremendous leadership. The work that she did on the Family Readiness Group, I will tell you, she brings it here. Into this capacity now, we're working for the people of the 20th Congressional District. She gives her every bit for that. And on top of that, she's a licensed clinical social worker with a heart the size of New York. She's the mother of our 3 children. She's my dear bride, Mary Jo. Please stand. We recognize her. Well, look, as we convene here today, alluded to moments ago, certainly you turn on the news today, and it doesn't matter which channel you watch. You'll hear folks running down this country. They'll talk to you about how the government's all gone to heck and that our country is heading in the wrong direction. Look, if it's Fox, it's because they're looking to fire the president. If it's MSNBC, it's because they want to fire the House Republicans. But I will tell you this. This is a great country, and our best days are still in front of us. And that's what this is all about what Bob mentioned too, is about an effort to restore the American dream, to bring us back the renewal of our American dream, the land of opportunity. And I stand before you. I will tell you this right now. I'm an affirmation of that American dream. You know, I grew up in a working class family. Bob and Barbara Gibson, my parents, we had 4 siblings. Dad was a worker for Otis Elevator. He was a mechanic. He was part of the union there. Typical for Irish Catholic families, we were Democrats. I was actually the first Republican in our family. And I'll tell you, it's a story I want to share with you because, you know, for my family, we suffered in the 1970s. Dad, particularly the late 1970s, Dad spent a lot of time out of work, either laid off or on strike. And this happened at the same time that we saw gas prices and home heating prices spike. And this devastated our family. And as all this was happening, I was, as a young lad, I mean, I'm in my teens at this point, and I'd watch the news. I was always very curious. And I watched the president at the time, who seemed like a really good man. He's got a sweater on, and he's telling us to turn the thermostat down. And I'm thinking, you know, I'm learning history in school about how great our country is, and I'm thinking, our best days behind us? And at that time, you saw Ronald Reagan come to the fore. And here was a man of vision, a man of leadership, a man who could communicate, a man who could bring forward policies that could move our economy forward, provide for opportunity so that all families, including working class families, could rise up. A man who committed to tax reform, to making our tax code more simple and more fair. And a man who was committed to policies to strengthening programs for our seniors. He did all this. He brought leadership to our country. You know, the term Reagan Democrat is thrown out. But I would tell you, it's not just about the politics. It was also everything about the essence of who we were. He brought us together. We felt great about ourselves again, and we moved our economy forward. That's why I became a Republican. And I will tell you that, yeah, my dad did not vote for Reagan in 1980. I worked really hard on it. It didn't happen. But you know what? He did in 1984. And, you know, all the elections after that, he never did change his party affiliation. But he went to his grave, a Truman Democrat. But he understood the points that I was making in terms of the freedom. And P.S., we've had a good number of our family move over to this side ever since. So, you're right. But look, you know, Ronald Reagan, he also was responsible for inspiring me, along with my dad, to join the United States military. You know, in May of 1981, at the age of 17, I enlisted in the United States Army National Guard. And at 17, of course, you need your parents' permission to do that. And fortunately, they had enough faith in me to do that. And so in a family of love and discipline, you know, I spent that summer between my junior and senior year of high school at Fort Benning, Georgia, at infantry basic training. I thought I knew love and discipline. I got a whole different kind of love and discipline down there. Some guys know what I'm talking about. Look, you know, I came back after that, a changed person. I went to drill one weekend a month. I was the captain of the basketball team, which gave me a taste of leadership. And I found that I gravitated to that. You know, people coming together over a cause, and then to lead that cause. When I got to Siena College, that's where I made the transition from enlisted man to officer. I went through the ROTC program. And then after I graduated, I went into the United States Army. Loved our country, thought I'd spend 3 years. But you know what? When I got into it, and when I was around Americans who felt the same way about our country, and about the same way about each other, it became a way of life. And for Mary Jo and I, we raised 3 kids in the United States military. And of course, this included some very hard times. Multiple combat tours, and seeing the human soul in very tough times, in very difficult times, and to see it overcome. And I will tell you this, you know, every now and then you'll hear people talk about this generation, this new generation, and they'll talk about video games and everything else, and about how our country may be in trouble. I will tell you, I agree with none of that. I have seen this generation under fire. And when they're shot at, they move forward. For our old vets out here, I will tell you, be proud, because they have filled in the shoes that you filled for us so many years ago, and I thank all the veterans in this room. But I will tell you that service I had, you know, was very important to me, and over the course of those many years, a deep appreciation for how special of a life we have here in America. And unexpectedly, that service ended in Haiti. You know, at the end of that earthquake, after that earthquake, when the president sent quick reaction forces to help in the aftermath of that earthquake, it was my brigade. And I led them there, and I will tell you that you can be very proud, because the compassion of the American soldier was on display. A city that had lost 250,000 dead. And our paratroopers were all about helping them, about trying to the search and rescue, about getting water to those who need water, and food, and medical support, and medical treatment. And to me, that was the capstone of what was 24 years. I decided to run for Congress, to retire and to run for Congress, because I looked out and I saw a divided nation moving in the wrong direction. And all my experiences in the military was about bringing people together and to focus on a mission and to move that unit forward and to accomplish that mission. And I thought I had something to bring to bear to this situation. I wasn't going to complain about it. I was going to try to do something about it. And so I retired on the 1st of March of 2010. 7 months and a couple days later, I was elected to the United States Congress. I'm focused on 3 goals. 3 goals, and I got those goals from listening to folks all over upstate New York. It's about the economy. You hear about jobs. Absolutely, it's about creating jobs. But it's more than just creating jobs, because we have folks who are in a job right now that don't feel secure in that job. So it's about creating jobs, it's about creating security in those jobs, and it's about raising the quality of living and the standard of living for all. We're absolutely capable of doing that. But we have to recognize how that's going to happen. That's going to happen by being empathetic and listening to small business owners and their employees. Because they tell you, they told me, that if you want us, because I asked them a pointed question, are you going to grow this year? And I listened and I took notes to what they said. They talked about a hostile and uncertain business environment that needed to be changed. There are 4 variables that we need to work on to change that. Taxation, a tax policy. We have a tax policy right now that is so complex, it is dense, and it's unfair. It is unfair to our small business owners and to our working families. Quite frankly, over time, it has grown to favor large corporations because they can afford the lawyers. They can afford the wing of lawyers to look for those loopholes. We need, just like President Reagan did, we need to go through that tax code. We need to close those loopholes that are not helping create jobs so that we can lower rates for all. That helps our small business owners, and that helps our hardworking families. Tax reform. I just voted for that last week. Tax reform. Number 2 is regulation. Look, I mean, this is a fundamental question for us because we absolutely need a regulatory state. The question is, do we have the judgment right? And I would tell you we don't. We don't have the judgment right. We're out of balance when it comes to regulation. And if you listen to our small business owners, no matter where you go, you're going to hear that. Whether it's coming from MSHA or EPA, you can take your pick. And I just want to give you one illustration of one of the things that we passed in the House this year that will make a difference. Because you know what? The Wall Street Journal, I think, got it right when they said that the REINS Act is going to fundamentally change the way our country approaches regulation. It's very simple, actually. It says that any time that a bureaucratic agency proposes a new rule that impacts the economy $100 million or greater, it has to go to the people's representatives for a vote. It goes for a vote. That's right. The universal thing you hear from small businesses is they're frustrated because they can't get at it. You know, for a legislator, you can come to us. You can tell us before we vote how you think I should vote. And afterwards, you can hold us accountable. But when it's an unelected, unconfirmed bureaucrat, it makes it much more difficult. We need more transparency, and we need more accountability. And we want the Senate to act on the bill. We passed it in the House. We want the Senate to pass it. We want the President to sign it. That will give us that accountability and that transparency. That's just one illustration in terms of the many things we've done on regulation. The other 2 impediments are healthcare costs and energy costs. And you think our small business owners out there today, all 4 of these things impact your decisions. And look, the healthcare bill, we moved in the wrong direction. We're already seeing higher premiums, more taxation, more regulation, more big government at a time that we should be consolidating the federal government. We're for market-oriented reforms, insurance across state lines, and for tort reform so that we can lower the costs that we can pass along so we can have more competitive insurance rates. And that will provide for more access. More individuals will choose to come in when they actually pay less price. So healthcare reform. And then also energy. Look, I mentioned earlier how this impacts my family. And I know how it's impacting right now to families all over upstate New York. And quite frankly, while you can't wave a magic wand over it, there are more things that we could be doing. You know, you look at supply and demand. You know, there are a number of factors that impact the cost of our gas and home heating. Supply and demand, and more accurately, the certainty of supply and demand. We could do more right here in the United States of America to drive down by getting more of our energy right here, more domestic exploration. We voted for that in the House. We passed 5 different bills that would have expanded exploration. Unfortunately, they also sit in the Senate, and we need action. And I will tell you that speculation also contributes to this. And this is part of my frustration when I go to Congress, because I see too often Republicans and Democrats go to their side, they bark at each other, and they'll say it's all of one, all of the other. I will tell you that sometimes Republicans say it's all supply and demand. Democrats say it's all speculation. I think that's a false choice. I think both variables are involved. We ought to be expanding supply, and we ought to be cracking down on any speculation that's going on that's artificially driving up the cost of our gas and home heating. And then also we have to recognize taxes impact this. We pay more for gas than other states based on the price that we pay for taxes in that gallon of gas. And then finally, at a time that we're importing 50% of our oil and our dollar's declining in value, we have to use more of it to get the oil. All the more reason why we need to be energy independent and have fiscally responsible policies that strengthen the dollar. All these factors will lower the cost of gas and home heating. And when you put this all, and by the way, there's more that we can do on energy. There are things we have to do right now. There are things we have to do over the midterm, including transmission. And there are things we need to do long term so that we move away from fossil fuels and use energy right here. We can do all of that. Don't believe the false choice that we have to choose between now and later. We can do both at once. We're a country that can do hard things. And I will tell you this, that when you look at these 4 impediments to growth, when you positively change that environment, you're going to provide for more profitability for small business. When small business has more profitability, I mean, look, our small business owners, they got the hunger. They're not going to check out and go to Tahiti. What they're going to do is they're going to reinvest. They're going to buy new equipment. They're going to expand and hire new workers. And while we're working on these 4 impediments, not only does that help small business, it helps hardworking families. They have more in their pocket. And let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that's the way to grow the economy. That's the private sector stimulus. When American people, 2/3 of our economy is consumer spending driven. And if our hardworking families have more in their pocket, they got choices. They'll probably save some of it, but they'll spend a good portion of that if they got more in their pocket, and that will grow the economy. 4 impediments to growth. There are a couple other variables that I work on very hard in conjunction with the impediments to growth. Number 5 has to do with infrastructure, broadly defined. Absolutely, it's roads and bridges. And let me tell you, as a brigade commander, every piece of equipment that we had a half-life. Machine gun, Humvee, did not matter. Some may be getting replaced in 6 months, some may be getting replaced in 10 years. But we tracked every piece of equipment. Disciplined organizations do that. And the same with governments. Spending money on infrastructure is conservative. You just got to pay for it. You got to budget for it and pay for it. But we need world-class infrastructure to facilitate this economy. But you know what? In the 21st century, it's not just roads and bridges. Today, we convey and sell goods over the internet. So you're going to see our office very passionate about broadband, high-speed broadband. We actually have a symposium coming up on the 11th of April at the Catskill High School. You're all invited. You can come if you want. You can send somebody to represent you if that works for you. But I'll tell you that this is an area where we actually brought an amendment to the floor of the House and saved that program. The high-speed rural broadband program. This is $6 million that provides for over $200 million for loans that gets paid back with interest, that helps our providers have a vehicle to get the last mile. And I will tell you folks, this is good for our farmers, this is good for small business, this is good for our education, and this is good for healthcare. We've got clinics out there that want to consult with doctors, and they don't have an ability to communicate. High-speed broadband is going to get us there. And we're going to help do that. And then education is also part of infrastructure. And look, here's where I think all the best intentions went awry. You know, we had a president about a decade ago, and he gave us No Child Left Behind. He certainly meant well. But what we have done is we've created a culture of students who get taught to the test. And, you know, we may have some teachers here tonight. I've talked extensively with teachers. Love teachers. I taught for 3 years when I was in the Army, in the United States Military Academy. And I will tell you, our teachers know they're never going to be rich, but they love what they do. Why would we ever want to micromanage them with unfunded mandates? We need to take a step back from that, and we need to empower our local communities when it comes to education, move back on the unfunded mandates. And we also need to recognize this, that while we want the world's best engineers, we are still a country that makes things with our hands. We still need the world's best mechanics, steam fitters, plumbers, welders. We need the best of all that create manufacturing in our society. And that was also a byproduct of what we did on some of that educational reform. We need to support our BOCES and Questar. That's the fifth variable, infrastructure broadly defined. And then finally, capital and markets. 2/3 of our economy is consumer spending driven. But you know what? We still dominate when it comes to creating goods other countries can't. And we make common goods in an uncommon way. And so we have to be constantly assessing our trade policy and making sure it's fair. We did this past year. Democrats and Republicans working together, we fixed the trade policy with South Korea, Panama, and Colombia so that our exporters are on a fair playing field when it comes to their competitors overseas. All of these variables, these 6 variables, if we implement them, we are going to grow. We're absolutely going to grow. We know this by studying history. This is part of the equation that caused us to grow so significantly after the Second World War. And I'll tell you what, we grow this economy, we can make up 1/4 of the deficit on growth. We lost $300 billion when we went into recession. We can get that back when we get America back to work. And you know what? Moving back to a balanced budget, that's goal number 2. That is vitally important because our children, our future generations, we want them to have the same choices and freedoms that we had. And so this is very important, and I will tell you that we have actually cut spending 2 years in a row now. Democrats and Republicans and the President actually all working together. We've cut spending 2 years in a row. We're not anywhere where we need to be, but you know what? And we don't expect to solve it overnight. But we need a vision, we need a plan, and then we need the discipline to stick to the plan. And I will tell you that what's encouraging is last week we finally got a bipartisan budget where Democrats and Republicans work together. It's a $4 trillion deficit reduction package that's pro-growth. That's encouraging. Now, only 38 folks voted for it this time, but I'm telling you, that's where we're going. We're going to get this consensus. And that's what I mean to tell you that we're optimistic, that we're going to move forward. Growing this economy, moving back to a balanced budget, and then let me talk about freedoms. First of all, recognition of how lucky we are that our forefounders, they gave us these documents, these incredible structure, our Constitution, that provides for our freedoms. We got to recognize that first and foremost and make sure that as we go about our duties, we don't step on our civil liberties. And then also we need to implement fundamental and comprehensive national security establishment reform. We can be safer for less money. The first thing is we need to take some of the approaches that I saw and worked with firsthand in Iraq that helped us accomplish our objectives there and elevate it to a national priority. That means consolidating the intelligence community, which has gone threefold since 9/11, and then better integrating it with the Special Operations Command. That's going to help us defeat Al-Qaeda. And then also thinking differently and recognizing that the strength of our country is our ideas. And leading with those ideas, diplomacy, and commerce, always backed up by the world's greatest military. Less military involvement overseas. If you think about it, what was one of our first mottos? Don't tread on me. And what was implied is we won't tread on you. We have, countries want to be like us because of our document. And that's what and because of our Constitution. And that is the strength of America. So I would tell you that by implementing comprehensive national security establishment reform, by implementing a Navy, by using the Navy to keep open access to sea lanes and markets, but taking the land forces overseas and moving them back to the United States of America, we're going to be able to reshape our national security establishment and be safer for less cost. Growing the economy, moving back to a balanced budget, protecting freedoms. These goals are American goals. And you know what? If you believe in those goals, whether you be a Republican, whether you be a conservative, independent, or a Democrat, if you believe in those goals, you're on our team. You're on our team. And we're going to move this forward, just like Reagan did when he attracted Democrats to his cause. You know, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to bring everybody together, and we're going to move forward. And let me just close with this. This is a time for leadership. Yes, it's a challenging period, but I will tell you what, we should take inspiration from the first great leader of our party, Abraham Lincoln, who led during the Civil War. 4 hard years of the Civil War. That war was very unpopular. Lincoln almost dumped in 1864 from his own party. This was a man of incredible personal and political courage. Personal courage. This is a president who actually went forward and was with our troops when they were engaged in battle. This is a president that right before the last major campaign in Petersburg was on a ship that was moving where mines were everywhere. They were worried it was going to blow up and kill the president. And this was a president that shortly after the fall of Richmond actually walked the streets with very little security. Now keep in mind, this is 6'4" President Lincoln. Unprecedented. And you know what? No analogy to this day. It would be like President Bush walking through Fallujah. It'd be like President Obama walking through Abbottabad after we killed Osama bin Laden. This is what Lincoln did. He brought courage. And he also brought political courage. Some of you may have read Team of Rivals. Team of Rivals talks about how Lincoln brought everyone together. Some people thought he was crazy because he had some of his political enemies right next to him in his cabinet. But you know what? This is a guy that knew how to unite us. And at the period when it was said to Washington that Lee was going to surrender the army, Grant asked for guidance. He said, how should I handle this? Because keep in mind, there were so many people in America that wanted to exact revenge. They wanted to exact revenge after that 4-year war. And President Lincoln's advice to him, let him up easy. It was always about the Union. It was always about the cause. It was always about freedom and equal opportunity. That was our first great leader. We should draw inspiration for that now. In Ulster County, I will tell you this. I promise you, I will give you every bit of energy I have. And with the right choices and by working together, our best days are still in front of us. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you.